So if there's one country I love the most in Hawaii 4, it's definitely Italy. I play Italy all the time, and so this time around I wanted to make Italy a massive, and I mean massive, empire. One where its hegemony would sweep across the world for centuries and centuries to come. And one of the things I need most would be an unstoppable army. A army that could rival even the Germans during World War II at the early stages. Now, this is going to be hard, but on top of that, I would also need an amazing Air Force and amazing Navy. I would need to be spending a few years at the very least to be building up my army, and this would be taking a while, but before all that, I'd need to take care of those pesky Africans down in the south, the Ethiopians. Now, they didn't really cause me much of an issue because I use the same tactic every single time. I push from the south with most of my army, and then once I capture their capital, I then push from the north, and pretty soon they collapse. It's not that hard, and I set up the Italian East African Company, giving them my Eritrean and Somalian land, so I don't have to worry about garrisoning them. Then I'd start working on the infrastructure and building up my civilian economy. This would take a few years, yes, and it's very slow, but it would help us in the long term for our military factories so we could start our war production. Speaking of which, I'd want to start expressing my distaste for my Eastern friends. I'd start first by forcing the Albanian king to hand over his land to me, and then I'd take the Montenegrin throne, and then Yugoslavia. The invasion was quick and pretty easy, to be completely honest. I mean, they crumbled and fell with ease, and it would really shock the entire world. Just bringing down the Serbian state just like 5 years after its creation. I mean, now, if you had not noticed by yet, I was allied with the Hungarians and the Austrians. Originally, the Hungarians tried to invade the Austrians, but I guaranteed them, and then I activated the Rome Protocols, and, now we're here. So the next thing was pretty obvious. I'd have to take out the Romanians, but they were a little bit strong and protected by a lot of the allies, so I'd start by taking around, their other neighbors, so when the invasion does start, it's very swift and quick. So that's why I went after Bulgaria next. And Bulgaria put up a strong defense at first, but quickly collapsed under our superior artillery and military build. Here it is if you want it. The Rangers help immensely. It helps immensely. So much soft attack gets brought on by Rangers. Now I needed more land, even beyond Bulgaria, to really push my navy upon the Mediterranean. It would really help the more I got land across the Mediterranean, so I looked down towards Greece. Greece would be my main and final act of the south of the Balkans. I wasn't too worried about Turkey. I mean, as long as they stayed neutral, I wouldn't really have to worry about them. So I immediately declared, but then they joined the Germans, who was allied with the Romanians and the Belgians. So that was not cool. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of started to panic. I mean, this was crazy. Would I even be able to hold off against the Germans at this point, especially with the Romanians on top? I'd be fighting a two-front war. And with the Greeks, I mean, I don't even know if I'd be able to put them out soon enough. But no, the Greeks fell pretty easily, actually. They collapsed under the bare minimum. As soon as I got a push, I just kept going, and they just collapse under the Italian might. Now, I went back north, and surprisingly, my allies were even making some pushes into Germany. That was crazy. But I also ran into this issue where my army got stuck in the Mediterranean, and I had to delete over 60 divisions. 60 is an overstatement, but it's a lot. It was a lot. I lost a lot, so I had to rebuild. But even with that, I put my army up against the Germans, and they were pretty weak, to be completely honest. They put most of their army in Romania, and they couldn't push the mountains, so it was pretty easy, to be completely honest. I mean, once I rebuilt my army and I got them out there, I immediately pushed up north for Berlin, and, well, I signed the peace conference. I mean, it was that easy. They just collapsed immediately. So far, every single enemy I was going against was pretty weak. I was pretty happy. And then there was the French question. Now, thankfully, the French went communist, so they weren't really allied with the British. That would be, I mean, not that would stop me, but it would have put a dent in my track if I also had to fight both of them at the same time. So, declared war on the French, and then the Spanish were also allied with the French. So, once I took Paris, I basically got myself the entire Mediterranean locked down just like that. And then, well, it was just a matter of what to do next. I mean, I'd have to start pushing out. I have to start pushing out my navy, which was starting to really get built up, and it was really looking like I could definitely stand a chance against the British. But the British were allied with the Japanese. That was not good at all, actually. And they were also allied with the Chinese, and they were fighting the Soviets. It was like this big thing. I have no idea, to be completely honest. But I was scared. I was definitely scared. There's no way I would have been able to do all that. So I decided to do it anyway. I mean, it was a big risk, but I needed to just, as long as I got as long as I got Gibraltar and the Suez, and then I took out the British Isles, then I think I'd be okay, at least for the long term. Them not having any island anywhere near me, I wouldn't have to worry about any invasions. So we landed in Britain pretty easily, actually, and Egypt was also a major success. I got held back in Israel for a bit, but after a long push, I eventually got them to surrender. And I landed inside the British Isles with no opposition at all. The British were pretty weak, to be completely honest, against my army. I mean, I tell you, the Rangers absolutely slammed every single army we went against. The Rangers are so good. Now, even on top of all this, their land was pretty flat, and their navy was pretty damaged, so it's not like they could have done much. So I took them out, then Ireland hopped over to Ireland, took them out from there as well. And then it was just a matter of Japan and China. And I don't know how this happened, but China just became my puppet at some point. I don't really understand what happened there. But I had a new Chinese puppet, and I was not going to complain one bit whatsoever. So I put my army in China and began my invasion of Japan, which, I mean, it's the Japanese. I mean, at this point, I was unstoppable. I had the British, the French, the Chinese under my hands. I mean, they were not going to stand a chance. So I put up my navy, and after a long while of just waiting, I eventually was able to land. And although the Japanese fought fiercely, they were not enough for the Italian army, and I swept completely. Now we signed a peace conference, and the world was looking pretty green. It was looking pretty Italian. I owned pretty much everything in the entire world. Now I really just wanted to strike back in the Americas. I wanted the U.S. If I got them, then no power would ever be able to talk back to me ever again. I would be the world dominating power. I mean, I already was. I had the world's #1 economy. I had the world's best navy. I had the world's best army. And now, if I took the Americas, well, that would just secure it even further. Because there's no way the Soviets would ever be able to compete with me at that point. So I invaded from Mexico. I pushed up. It was quite easy at first, but as time went on, everything got harder. Time seemed to get longer and longer, and I just kept hitting into a brick wall. Although that brick wall was slowly crumbling and I was slowly pushing to DC, it was still just a brick wall. I was draining supplies like crazy, and I wasn't really sure. As the Americans invaded Mexico from the south, I was not sure if I was ever going to be able to actually win before they capitulated Mexico. And if they capitulated Mexico, well then I was doomed. There's no way I'd ever be able to supply or regain all that land back and get my army out before the Americans just slaughtered me. So I made one last desperate push. I put my army towards DC. I started pushing. I pushed the East Coast. I pushed all the way up until I couldn't push any further, and they just crumbled. It was too much for the Americans to handle, and they just crumbled. Italian hegemony was secured all across the globe. The Italians reigned supreme because of me. I ruled the world. I was basically the new Roman Empire. I mean, I owned everything. All of North Africa. Every single thing I wanted in the Balkans, in the East, in the West, and everything else was my puppets. It was just that easy. Yeah, anyway, that's about it. I mean, the Soviets declared war on me, but I wasn't really too worried about that. My allies were already pushing, and if my puppets can push them, I don't think I need to. I mean, I just called it quits there. This was already like 5 hours long, and I was just kind of getting tired. I was not really all too enthusiastic to keep playing as Italy. Although I love Italians, I love Italy. I want to go there for vacation one day. It's a really cool place. I've done so much history lessons on them. I love the Italians. Such a remarkable place. But I'm just gonna be honest, I just wasn't having it anymore. I needed to take a break. So with all that was how I declared the new Italian Empire over the world. The Roman dream came true once more because of me. Not because of Mussolini, not because of some other Italian guy who thought he was so cool and had some new ideology. No, because of me. Because of me. A 16-year-old kid sitting in his room playing Hoi 4 because of me. If they just elected me president, or elected me dictator, or whatever, governor, council member, I don't know, whatever they want to call it, prime minister, I don't know, I don't really care. Whatever. I made it true. I made the Italian dream once more. I ruled the world. The world. I tell you, the world. And it was glorious. It was glorious.